Welcome to Bad First Impression, the podcast about movies and where we meet them. We are at the end of a kind of like informal season.
Am I the last one?
Here, you're going to be the last one in this season. Right now, we've been doing guest choice episodes where somebody comes on and defends a movie that they think has been marred by an undeserved bad first impression and kind of defends the movie and its merits. But yeah, this is the last one. Back on the pod, we have cursed promotional image editor of this show, Lily Steinberg, to defend a movie she's kind of had on our like. This has been a movie that for like years now, you're like, we could. Like every time we're talking about what movie to watch, this is like one of the first ones that you're like, what we could watch.
It's a pleasant movie.
It is a pleasant movie.
Spoilers, Devin likes it.
Yes, I feel like we've been on a run of me sitting here with guests who I'm always thankful for their time, and I'm always interested in like getting an insight into what other people's taste in movies is and what's important to them. And especially when you ask the question, when you're asking somebody to go on the defensive, I love to see what movies they pick, especially when they're like, you're going to be put, basically on trial. It's not that dramatic. I don't know. You just have to say you like it. But I've been on a run where I haven't shared the enthusiasm for a movie that that a lot of my guests have lately. This is one where I think I'm fully on the side of the initial like reputation of this movie is totally like undeserved.
Completely skewed.
I think that it's a misunderstanding of what this movie is like seeks to accomplish. And I think it's an example of people being a little harsh on it because of who's involved in it. Lily, do you want to go ahead and tell us, one, what movie you're here to defend, and two, what about this movie feels worth defending to you?
So the movie I'm here to defend is Jersey Girl, the Kevin Smith feature.
The 2004 Ben Affleck vehicle.
Yes. I just think it's like a good comedy movie. I think it's an easy movie to watch. It doesn't, even if you don't really like Kevin Smith and his other stuff, it's got a really different kind of thing going on. And just every time I've seen criticism of it, it's always been something that's like an intention of the film. Like I see most of the criticism I see of it is that like, oh, it's too sappy. And I'm like, yes, exactly.
Yeah. The movie is about a relationship of a child with their father. At the end, it is dedicated to the, at the time, recently deceased father of Kevin Smith.
Based on the date, it seems like he probably died during filming.
During or immediately before
and
production.
Also while filming, he made this movie because his daughter was around this age.
Yeah.
Like it's very purposefully very sappy.
Yeah, I think that this is a really schmaltzy, like overly like at moments, there are movies that I dislike for similar levels of sentimentality in moments. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not necessarily saying that Jersey Girl does anything novel to justify that schmaltziness. All I'm saying is that when I'm watching it, for whatever reason, it works for me.
Yeah, it's sweet. All the actors have really good chemistry with each other. It really felt like a right movie, wrong time for when it came out. But everyone's perception of it still seems to be, oh, is that the Ben Affleck movie from that time? Ew.
Yeah, I think that there are kind of, in terms of like consensus opinions, there are kind of two opinions on this. One, oh, that's nothing. Like people are just dismissive of it outright. They don't even like, have any strong negative opinions about it. And then there is, I feel like, a smaller subset of people who like really dislike this thing.
Yeah.
It has like a very low audience score.
Yeah. Well, so before I told you that I really liked this movie, whenever that was years ago.
Yeah.
What was your perception of the movie?
So when we were watching it the other night, I realized I do have like some history with this. I assumed that this was just like a cable syndication movie at some point.
Probably.
So I have seen, at the very least, the scene where Ben Affleck and Liv Tyler almost have sex.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've seen that much, and I don't think like it's not like there's any nudity in it. Like I wouldn't have been like looking it up as a little kid on like on YouTube or anything. Like I wouldn't have gone out of my way for it. But I believe I just kind of caught clips of it on cable.
Sure.
But that scene stuck out. I think that's a really funny scene as it exists in the movie. but yeah, and it's very funny that you're defending the movie Jersey Girl, a movie about how it's totally fine to live in New Jersey and you don't need to move to New York, since you have lived in New York City literally your entire life, born and raised.
Yeah.
What it's very funny to me that like it's literally a plot point.
Yeah,
that they're
they
like,
don't want to go.
I have a job prospect to go live in New York, and the whole thing is you should stay here.
Yeah. I don't know.
So,
I just like it.
I don't know. I find I agree with you. That's the thing, is because if I were going to think about the politics of this movie, which I think is a dumb thing that nobody should do, but for the purposes of like discussing why somebody might dislike it, I also moved away from my hometown to New York, like amid a difficult decision to spend less time around your family, right? Like theoretically, I shouldn't like the sentimentality of this, because in making the life decisions I've made, I reject that sentimentality, every year, every day of my life, basically. But instead of making me feel guilty the way that movies like this sometimes can, it does really just kind of feel like a warm hug. It feels, I think it's because it's less about Jersey specifically, which is crazy to say.
No, it's more just about family. Well, and also because like when you're watching it, you're not really thinking like, is this relatable to me? I feel like in those moments you're like, that feels like the right thing for these characters.
No, you're watching the guy and you're like, I think because this is like, I don't mean this like in a gross way. I just mean this in like a screenplay way. Yeah. This is a story of a romance between Ben Affleck and his daughter.
This is basically a rom-com.
Yes, exactly. In the same way that like something like I Love You, Man, which is about a platonic male friendship, with as much as I love that movie, maybe this is part of why it's so successful. That movie, unlike most movies about platonic same-sex friendship, has no sexual tension between the two leads whatsoever. It is one of the rare movies that truly, there's really nothing to be read into it at all.
Yeah.
And so in the way that movie is a kind of a romance between two friends learning how to like make space for friends in their life, this is a movie about a guy learning to not love his daughter. I think he loves his daughter from the outright. That's not an issue.
Oh, yeah.
But learning to love being a father and the life
especially without his wife.
Yes. And we'll talk a little bit about the wife and the absence of her and how she might have affected other versions of this movie as we move on. But I want to backtrack just a little bit here. Mm-hmm. You're kind of a Kevin Smith person, aren't you?
I really like Kevin Smith.
I feel like was he for you a foundational, this is like one of my guys as you were getting into film?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I don't remember like the first one I saw or where it came from. I do remember where I found this movie, which was, I don't know, do you know the documentary This Film Is Not Yet Rated?
I know of it. I've not seen it.
Well, so it's a documentary about the rating system, essentially about how it's incredibly misogynist, incredibly homophobic.
Yeah.
It's a lot about that. And there's this scene in it where Kevin Smith talks about how this movie, Jersey Girl, when he submitted it, it got an R rating. And he went to them and he was like, hey, what the hell's wrong with you? What do you mean an R rating? And they said it was the scene where Liv Tyler talks about masturbation. They were like, that's too much for us. Yeah. And he said, he was basically like, if this were a man, you wouldn't be doing this. And he just convinced them to go down to a PG-13 rating.
Yeah, what's really crazy is that she just says that she masturbates. She doesn't even say I do this. She doesn't describe any.
It's not vulgar at all. And I think honestly, I think that like my 18-year-old girl brain, I saw Kevin Smith say that and I was like, oh my God, feminist icon. And went and watched this movie.
I'm not super versed in Kevin Smith's filmography. Yeah. It's very funny that you'd think that about him because
I know.
His movies, I feel like, rarely feature female characters of prominence at all. And then when he does, it's not that he's blatantly misogynistic towards them, right? I don't know. How would you?
I don't think so. I mean, and I'm also a Chasing Amy defender, and I think that her character, her name's not Amy, but I don't remember her name. Mm-hmm. But that character, I actually think she's like incredibly three-dimensional the way that I see the character. Mm-hmm. And I think too many people see the character through the other character's eyes rather than as her own person when they watch the movie. And I think unless I'm giving it too much credit, which is also possible. But the way that I watched that movie, she's like very much a person going through a very specific time in her life.
Yeah. I understand the conflict there because Kevin Smith seems like a guy who it is very easy to simultaneously be giving too much and too little credit.
Yes, no,
There's
exactly,
just-
exactly. And so I don't know if I'm seeing too much that's not there. That's also one that, similarly to Jersey Girl, I just kind of watched a lot because I liked it, and it just like hit an emotional thing for me. But yeah, I found Jersey Girl through that, and I also, just going back to something that you said earlier, is I like really latched onto it when I was 18, and I really latched onto that movie, and I really latched onto I Love You Man. Those were like the two movies I watched them all the time, and I've been thinking about that over the past few days because those were like at the same time I would watch those all the time. And I think that it's two things. One is that I really wanted to watch rom-coms. But had two issues. One was it would be nice to have some that are not about romantic relationships, which is nice. But then also the internalized misogyny of an 18-year-old who's like, well, I'm getting into film and I don't want people to think I'm a person who watches romantic comedies.
Yeah.
And I think that that's how I ended up latching on so hard to this specific movie, because there's nothing in here that's particularly relatable to me. I just like the feelings of watching this movie.
Yeah, no, I understand completely. I found this to be like, this is just like a warm bath. It's just really comforting. That, like I said, it doesn't do anything novel or even really particularly interesting. Like, not to say that there aren't interesting moments, and like I often I laugh pretty hard at a lot of it. I think it's a very funny movie.
The Sweeney Todd set, I think, is like genuinely fantastic.
It's funny because it's like, even at that point in his career, I think this is his 6th movie.
Something like that.
It is like weirdly the fake in-world grade school play set that they build to stage God That's Good from Sweeney Todd is weirdly one of the most complex like set or like, you know, production design he's done in any of his movies up till then.
Yeah,
it's
besides
really
maybe
funny.
Dogma, which has some weird stuff.
Dogma's got some
Although
stuff in it.
Jay and Silent Bob is pretty, I don't think you've seen it. It's a pretty nuts film.
Okay, I haven't seen Jay and Silent Bob, and we might pin that discussion for later.
It's
Wink,
pretty
wink.
nuts. I remember there being there's some sets.
Okay,
it's a much
cool.
grosser
No.
movie than this, which is also, I mean, because I don't know how Kevin Smith fans felt about this at the time. I think they like it now, but Jersey Girl is certainly a departure from his previous movies, especially when the last one was Jay and Silent
It's
Bob.
a bit of an odd duck in his filmography, even since.
Yes.
Because he kind of, it feels like not long after this kind of gets boxed into like, well, I'm going to be making mainstream movies, and he tries buddy cop, and he tries, you know, more action, and this is like, that's the thing, is this isn't even indicative of things he would do later.
No, it's not.
This
Well, and I
really
think,
does feel like him working through a period in his life.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, I don't know where this would have fit in without it, but I believe it was pre Jay and Silent Bob that people were like, this guy's the next Scorsese. This is like a real Oscar dude to look out for. And then he released Jay and Silent Bob, and people were like, never mind.
It's really interesting the way that we used to do that to directors, because like people talked about him that way when really he was like a guy who was making movies in his backyards with his buddies.
Also, like, if you've
not
seen,
saying they're not to denigrate them.
Well, but also like if any of them had seen Mallrats, they would have seen Jay and Silent Bob coming.
Yeah.
Like he's a gross, weird guy.
Yeah. We did that, and then I've probably mentioned it a million times on this podcast already, but like the Time magazine cover with M. Night Shyamalan on it with the caption, "The next Spielberg?" ?
Oh yeah.
A cruel thing to do to anybody.
Incredibly.
And he craters afterwards, and he only ever finds any artistic or financial success ever again by basically saying, I cannot work in the traditional studio system. Almost all of his movies since then, I believe, he has just like, to fund the visit, he took a second mortgage on his own home.
Oh wow.
And like spent like, you know, it was like $1.5 million or something to make that movie for basically nothing. And now he basically just keeps refinancing like property of his to do it that way. And it's a funny comparison because Kevin Smith, I think, is around the same time dealing with those like heavy expectations, and his career doesn't ever really crater the way that M. Night did for a little while there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kevin Smith just I don't even think he like lost a part of his audience. I think it was just like whatever critic circle really liked him, they were like, this is no longer for us.
I think Ebert stayed.
Except for Ebert. Ebert loves Jay and Silent Bob too.
Ebert, I think, never stopped liking Kevin Smith.
I forgot to look it up. But I believe he gave Jersey Girl a perfect 4 out of 4.
Yes,
okay.
he did. Yeah.
And I think he gave Jay and Silent Bob a 3.5 out of 4.
Yeah, which it's the only surprising thing there is that he liked this more than Jay and Silent Bob. That's the only thing that
I like this movie better than Jay and Silent Bob.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
That's funny.
I think this is a better movie.
Okay.
I remember, I believe this was all the same day. I watched Jersey Girl. I was like, this is great. Why do people not like it? I looked it up. I found the 4 out of 4 review. I was like, ooh, Roger Ebert. I guess I'll check his reviews more because I knew who he was. I wasn't like, who is this guy? But I was like, oh, well, maybe he has similar taste to me. It would be cool to like get his opinions on new releases. 3 hours later, he died.
Oh, why did you read that?
Apparently, I killed him.
By agreeing with him?
By looking at his Jersey Girl review and being like, man, I should read this guy more.
But before then, you hadn't read an Ebert review?
No, I just hadn't really, I guess it just hadn't really come up because I was specifically looking for good reviews of Jersey Girl. And that's the only one that exists.
So what killed him was being the only person to leave a positive review of Jersey Girl?
Yeah, I did it by accident by speaking his name.
Wow. Okay. Well, R.I.P. Raj.
Sorry.
We miss you.
Sorry, Roger. I love you. The only man who was alive to agree with me for 3 hours.
Do you think 3 hours after we record this, one of us will die? Because there can't be, two people in agreement. In looking up
stuff earlier, because I just wanted to make sure I had some of my facts right. I found from the View Askew subreddit, I found a bunch of people talking about how this movie is not remembered as fondly as it should be.
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't call it a critical reevaluation. It's not anything that widespread.
No, but it's a solid movie for the movie that it is.
Because I think this is the type of movie that, with regards to the people who disliked it at the time, it was basically just forgotten by them. They don't rail on it as that's the time he ruined his career.
No, yeah, exactly. It's not.
I feel like that's the thing is that within Kevin Smith's career, this isn't even the go-to by trolls to be that's the this is not even close to that conversation.
He's released the worst movie ever made since. So
yeah, I actually don't really know which one you're referring
Yoga
to.
Hosers?
Yeah, not to say that I think they're all bad.
No,
I just
but
don't,
yeah, that one is particularly
late.
I mean, yeah,
output.
I didn't watch that one in full, and I haven't seen the Jay and Silent Bob reboot or whatever, which I'm told is really, really bad.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, tell us if you like the show.
Please air the 2 hour plus Jersey Girl again, because I would like to go see it because I never got to see it.
Yes, I do.
Kevin, longtime listener of the pod.
We'll bring this up real quick. There is this movie is about 100 minutes. So it's actually a really well paced, nicely structured
it is.
movie.
I will say there are some scenes that go on for 3 minutes too long, and there's at least 3 scenes that go on for 3 minutes too long.
There's a couple, yes. And we will do a very basic breakdown of this movie, I think. But before we do, I want to touch on the fact that, like I said, this movie's about 100 minutes long. It is only described as 2+ hours, which, by the way, Kevin describes most movies. To be it's he on his website, you can see there's a page for it. He's like, this is my 2+, and honestly, I give him credit for the bit. This is my 2+ hour Jersey Girl : the Snyder cut is what he called it.
That's funny.
It's actually it's really funny because when the Snyder cut came and it was 4 hours, we were like, well, no commercially releasable film is 4 hours. That's not
Jersey Girl Taylor's version.
It's just so funny to be like, yeah, I added all this extra shit. It's over 2 hours. I'm like, yeah, that's
so it's two hours and half a second or something.
I believe it is. It's probably in the 205, 210.
Probably
from what I can glean, because this is a movie that I have not. This is a cut of the movie rather.
Yeah,
I have not seen any indication that there are plans for it to get a physical release.
No.
And what's funny is that we've actually been you were a little reticent to do this episode actually originally. And it's funny because we've spent a couple months back and forth discussing to see this when we actually just missed the only couple showings of it with the little girl who plays Ben Affleck's daughter.
She was there.
Well, she's not a little girl anymore.
Well, okay,
she's an adult.
Obviously.
But it's a movie's 20th
I'm curious
anniversary.
to see her.
With her in attendance at his movie theater, the Smod Castle in New Jersey.
I would have loved to see that. That's the most me thing derogatory.
Yes. It would have been a fun time. I would have gone.
I know, yeah.
So I
would have gone out to Jersey for that.
We just missed it. I think it happened in. I think the movie's anniversary would have been in March, and I think
so.
It came
when
out,
are they going to do that again? Yeah. When I was looking at that one Reddit thread that I looked at, it was people talking about seeing because this thread was from over a year ago or from last year, so maybe he plays it every once in a
I don't
while.
know. Maybe
But
he
it was
does it
that,
every
and a
now and
couple
then.
people talked about seeing early versions of it, and that was the early version. I think like
Is the longer
test
cut.
audiences probably were
Yeah.
like make it shorter.
Well,
And like they said that they liked it more.
Yeah. And his description of it on the website, because you can't, to the best of mine, I couldn't find, any version of it online, but it's his like big descriptor. He's like, and it's got a lot more J-Lo.
Really?
It extends the part.
I
where
think
J-Lo's
that part's
character
too
is
long
alive.
already, personally.
Really? Okay. Well, we'll get into it. So this
We can
movie,
talk about that.
which I think that like we probably should give a really basic plot outline for, because I don't think it's something that everybody has cultural awareness of.
No, I don't think it did very well. I don't think
so-
people have seen this movie.
Ben Affleck plays Oliver Trinke. The character name is what it is. I don't know what to tell you. He's a publicist in New York City. He's a hot shot. By the way, there is a
Workaholic.
There is a framing device at the beginning of this where the movie is being told via narration by the daughter as she's reading an essay to her class. This is never touched on again.
And it, like
They don't-
5 minutes in, like it's
like-
not even for the whole beginning part. It's just like the
No,
first.
yeah, that's the thing,
It's
is
just
there's-
I think her birth.
Yes,
Oh
yes.
no, not her birth. It's just her parents meeting.
Yes, it's her parents' meeting. They don't address it at the end of the movie.
It's really dumb.
You don't flash back to it at any point throughout the movie.
Maybe that's in the
Her
maybe
na-
the 2-hour cut has a full narration.
Her narration isn't even brought back in the end. Like that's
No, it's
the
not.
thing. But anyway, so we have Oliver Trinke, played by Ben Affleck. He meets this woman, Gertie, who he falls in love with right away.
Played by Jennifer Lopez.
Played by Jennifer Lopez.
That's the big one.
Notably, she was dating Ben Affleck at the time.
Yeah, well, I think that's also a problem that people had with this movie.
Yes, because it relates to another movie which we will bring up shortly.
That, and also I think because people did also like them, this was sort of advertised as, look, another Bennifer movie, and
Yes.
people went and she died like 10 minutes in, and they were
Yes.
like, hello?
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, they shouldn't have done that.
So-
Remember when people got Zendaya baited by the Dune movie last year? 2 years ago?
I mean, that was their fault. I don't know.
That
what to
was
tell
their
you.
fault,
That's
but she
actually
is
4 years
all
ago,
over the
actually.
trailer.
2021, yeah. It's a 2021 film.
3 years ago.
Oh, you're right. It's 2024. My bad. I miscounted the men.
The Men?
The men. It was a 30 Rock reference.
Oh, okay.
Steve Martin. He's like,
Sure.
I miscounted the men, Liz. You don't remember that? All right. Well,
You
don't know what to tell you. Moving on. Yeah. So they get married. They get pregnant with a girl.
They
And-
get pregnant.
They, as a couple. This is great for the audio listeners. It's just you and me silently covering our mouths. Jennifer Lopez gets pregnant.
Thank you.
Jennifer
Lopez playing Gertie gets pregnant.
Yes. And during the birth, in an honestly like pretty scary scene,
Horribly upsetting.
The stress of the birth causes an aneurysm that was in her brain to rupture, and she dies basically immediately. And in the aftermath of this, while he's trying to bury himself in his work, this is probably the most complicated part of the whole setup. So bear with me here. As he is grieving, but has an infant daughter who he's kind of neglecting, he's more or less delegated the care of his daughter to his father, who lives in Highlands, New Jersey, played by George Carlin, in what I think is an extremely fun supporting role.
He's
really,
fantastic.
he's really great. It's mostly just, it's not even the part as written is any good. It's just everything he says is so compelling. But he's more or less just become derelict in his duty as a father. He's burying himself in his work to distract himself from his grief. And after his father gets fed up and says, you know what, take the baby to work, while trying to deal with a screaming baby and run a press release for at the time, because this movie takes place in 2004, but this beginning part takes place in 1990. It would be 96, 97.
97, because she's 7 in the, yep.
Yeah. Pre-Independence Day, Will Smith, who is at the time best known as a novelty rapper on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Ben Affleck, in a moment of just stress and being overwhelmed, badmouths Will Smith right as he's about to explode as his publicist to an entire room full of people who are all recording him. This effectively ruins his career. He cannot work in publicity anymore if he's bad-mouthing the people for whom he's doing publicity. Basically, at that point, cut to 7 years later, He is working with his dad, who works for the county. I think Ben Affleck is driving a street sweeper, which humorously, as many people pointed out, he refers to as the Batmobile, a vehicle he would later drive. I don't know. I'm just pointing it out to you. He's living in New Jersey.
So Ben Affleck would be in both Snyder cuts if he released Jersey Girl Snyder
That's
cut.
the thing, is that Ben Affleck has...
And the Batmobile would be in both.
Ben Affleck is scored 2 versus the 0 that all other actors who are not in at least Zack Snyder's Justice League or in Jersey Girl, who all have 1. But he has 2.
He has 2.
He has 2 Snyder cuts. No other actor.
You're telling me there's no cut of Justice League with Carlin in it?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know.
That's too bad. That would have gotten me to watch it.
Do you think the fact that he was dead for almost a decade by the time that movie started principal photography had anything to do with that?
I mean, they CGI'd Henry Cavill's mustache out. You can do anything, you know?
That's true, yeah. No blockbuster would ever be so tasteless as to CGI a dead person into their movie. So he's living in New Jersey, raising his daughter, living with his dad. He meets this woman who works at a video rental store, and I gotta say, just taking this back, video rental store was amazing. I love
seeing it.
It is one of the best like movie video rental stores I've seen, because it's like in a New Jersey strip mall. It really does just kind of look like the one that's not a blockbuster. It's not even really a family video. It's just it is like a one-off mom and pop shop.
Yes.
And it's really fun to see. There's there's a porn room in the back with like the beaded curtain to go into it.
I miss seeing those.
Yeah, I miss seeing. Well, the thing is that when I was going to video stores as a kid, I was young enough. Like the last time video stores were a viable, like pre-Netflix thing, I couldn't go in the porn section because they would see they're like I was only hitting half the beads. I couldn't go in there.
No, yeah, but and like it doesn't matter if you want to go in there or not. There's beads. They're shiny. You want to go in, and like because those were closed. I don't know if you've ever been to the store Ricky's. They sell like beauty products, but they also have like a sex toy section.
Oh, that's fun.
Behind a beaded curtain. And like when I turned 18, I was like, I don't want any of this stuff. I just need to walk through a beaded curtain.
Be fun to go to Ricky's, mostly just to walk through the beads.
Yeah, I don't know if they still have them. I haven't been in a while, so I don't mean to get your hopes up.
They don't have to have sex toys back there. I mostly just want to walk through beads.
Exactly, me too. But yeah, so I did it just to do it, and I probably would have done it at video stores also.
Well, I don't think at that age I really registered that it was porn back.
I don't think I did either. I was like, ooh, the secret movie stash.
All I knew was like it was stuff I wasn't allowed. Yeah. So like I think in my head, because to me the most fascinating thing at a video store was horror movies, because I was such a little baby as like a little kid.
Yeah.
That like literally I would look at the cover of like movies that aren't even really scary, like the Leprechaun sequels and shit, and I'd be like, that's the fucking scariest thing I've ever seen.
Thinking about you thinking until you're 18 that there's horror movies behind that beaded curtain and being like, oh boy, I'm so excited. And you walk in and you're like, oh, where are all the horror movies?
But now there are no porn rooms for me to go walk into. Isn't that sad that I'm now old enough to go into the adults only section and there's no adults only section left? What happened to this country?
We can put a beaded curtain up in our house and put adult things behind it, like I don't know, 3 extra rolls of toilet paper,
like my old tax returns and shit.
Yeah.
Like this sucks.
Paper towels, although we keep forgetting to buy those. So,
are you asking me to do you want me to add it to the list on the air? I have my notes app up. I'll just go ahead and put in paper towels.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for doing this on the air.
So anyway, he meets.
Make sure to write beaded curtain.
Paper towels. Okay, I'll remember. Don't worry. I'll remember the beaded curtain part. So he meets the woman in the video rental store. I think her name is Maya, played by Liv Tyler. Let me double check the name, but I believe her name is Maya.
I also don't remember their names when I'm watching the movie.
It's Maya Harding is the character's name.
Okay.
She works at the video store. She's a grad student who sees him trying to buy porn or trying to rent porn, and becomes kind of fascinated by him, invites him to lunch, becomes part of their life. And she's not the only factor. There's a couple other things that go on, but she is kind of the impetus for him to be like, maybe my life doesn't have to just be a sad sack who doesn't even try to have a life outside of like the most basic shit of all time.
I wonder if the longer cut has more of her bonding with Gertie, because I imagine that would be a big factor for him as
The
well.
amount that's in the cut that exists, like, kind of like implies that there was supposed to be more of that.
Because by the time they're like rehearsing for the show together, it's clear that they have a rapport.
Yeah, and that's kind of glazed over a little bit.
Yeah.
But through this, he gets in contact with an old work colleague of his, Jason Biggs.
Yes.
Gets a job interview in the city, which everybody in his life is like, if you do that, it's going to uproot the whole, we got a good thing going on here, man. And he has like a really mean conversation where he tells George Carlin and Stephen Root, you guys are losers. I don't want to live here in New Jersey with you anymore.
I would never say that to them.
He's so mean in that scene, but I'll tell you this, relatable.
No, I do
Yes.
understand where he's coming from.
Yes.
Especially because everyone well, not everyone, but like, I mean, she's obviously very young, but I also do understand being like, I kind of thought everyone was going to be excited about this. I don't really see why everyone's so upset.
It doesn't even have to be about a move or thing that will like, even something that will really meaningfully affect the lives of the people around you.
Yeah.
There are times where you get really excited about something, and when the people around you, even if it's just them like making fun of it, lightly or not taking it seriously, then it's so immediately like flustering and frustrating.
Yeah, it makes you go immediately on the defense.
Yes,
which is why he is so mean in that scene.
Yeah, and we'll get back to kind of the psychology of him here in a second, but I just want to say, so he goes into the interview. He goes in the interview, and then this is the other slightly like complex thing. He goes into the lobby. He's asked to wait for 10 minutes. Gertie's play that we were discussing before is happening at 5. His interview is at 4 in the city. So he gets there at 4. They say, you're going to have to wait 10 minutes. So he says, okay, I'm going to sit. I'll try and wait. And as he's sitting there, Will Smith walks in, unaware of who he is, sits down next to him. And in a now incredibly bizarre to observe scene, a very long scene.
It's a little long.
They sit there.
I like it.
Will Smith in the most 2004 outfit of all. To be clear, I kind of love it. It's a great outfit. Sits there and talks to him in what has to be one of the most insincere performances I've ever seen Will Smith give, where he sits there and says, my career doesn't matter to me. I feel like I'm such a big dumb loser for doing this.
I would rather be with my kids than be working. I wish I was at home
playing with my kids. Which, as we all know,
I love letting my kids be kids and watching them play.
Which, as we all know, Will Smith and his relationship to his children is not weird or complicated, or strained, or involving terrible decisions that do involve M. Night Shyamalan at any point. So he's a totally normal guy who just regular loves his kids.
Totally.
Will Smith also a regular listener of the podcast, and he'll probably be like, yeah, I was on my bullshit at the time.
Will Smith, you mean Will's brother-in-law? Your friend Will's brother-in-law, Will Smith?
Yeah, Will love hearing that. Yeah. It's
sorry, our friend Will.
Yeah, our friend. Sorry. Nice save. Yes. So he's sitting there, and in sitting there saying like, oh, I'd rather be with my kid. Bennett, this is, I think, where there might be an argument that this movie is a little too schmaltzy, carries some weight, because he's sitting there moments from having a job interview.
I think it's sweet.
And I'm not saying it's not sweet. Cute. I'm not saying it's not sweet. I'm saying it's maybe too sweet.
And also like, obviously like this is what the movie's building to. But I think the first time you see it and you're like, oh, they actually did get Will Smith to do this.
Yes.
And also his kid is also around this age. It's like, oh, this is very sweet.
As insane as watching even modern day, Will Smith and Ben Affleck, with all the recent baggage that comes with those two guys, sit there and
I don't know what you're talking about. I just woke up from a 5-year coma. So I don't know what you're talking about. I'm saying
if you go back that far, are both of those guys substantially less weird enough that like that wouldn't even matter?
No, because Ben Affleck is like the Batfleck and stuff, which,
and he's about
people
to be
really
dating,
didn't like him that
about
much.
to be dating Ana de Armas.
Yeah.
Will Smith is on his steady decline of being a weirdo. He's not really a movie star in 2019.
No, he's attempting to get an Oscar.
Yes.
And failing.
I don't
badly.
know was that maybe Focus, or is that the year before?
I don't know. There was that movie Concussion as well, which was around that time.
That might have been before Focus. But
Okay.
either way, you're watching these two guys.
Gemini Man.
People
like that movie.
Yeah. You're watching these two guys where there's no modern baggage whatsoever, sitting there talking about how the last thing in the world they want to be is a movie star, and they wish they were at home playing with their kids. It's a weird scene, but I'll tell you this, as weird as Will Smith makes it, it becomes bad weird if Will Smith isn't there. If Ben Affleck comes across this any other way.
No, it's because it's like this full circle moment for him where he's like, he ended my career the first time, and now I guess he's going to prevent it from starting again.
Well,
this time in a good way.
And then he does this is where the analog to a rom-com. He does the rush to the airport, except for it's a rush to the school play in New Jersey.
And it works in the last second. But that's also where all that stuff, where I'm like, yes, this is structured like a rom-com. Obviously, this is not believable.
No, it's totally ridiculous.
Obviously, this is silly and not believable. And also, his big apology is a grand gesture.
Yes.
A grand gesture of he made it back to Jersey with zero traffic.
To give this movie some credit, it then ends with he's going to go celebrate afterwards with his dad and his.
I was giving the movie credit when I said all that stuff.
His new girlfriend and his daughter, and saying, "I'm going to stay in Jersey. I love living with my family. And this is the life I chose. This is the life I want. It is his
Will
journey.
Smith taught me that.
Yeah, Will Smith.
And then 2 years later, he sees Pursuit of Happiness, and he's like, I could have just brought my kid.
Shit. Yeah, him just watching. It's like, fuck. I could have. Is Pursuit of Happiness literally the next year? I think so.
I think it might be.
Yeah. Oh my God. Not a very good movie. Yeah. So it ends the way that you're expecting it to end.
Yeah.
Is it a little manipulative? Sure. But the fact that I know that this is a guy using this script and directing this movie as a way to work through his feelings about being a father, about being a son. And it has this really sweet moment at the end with George Carlin that pretty much just got me, where he sits there and he says, he says to him, Ben Affleck says to George Carlin, is like, why, are you so afraid of living alone? He says, no, I'm afraid of dying alone. And it's really, and it gets all of that stuff across. George Carlin actually doesn't have that much screen time in this movie. And he's very effective in the time that he has.
He's used very well. I personally, I know it's like obviously the big one. But I find that the moment where she sees that he's the one who made it to be in the play, to be like genuinely earned and very sweet.
Yeah. The little girl, by the way, who I got to check her name real quick. It's Raquel Castro. I think she's excellent. She has fantastic chemistry. I mean,
with every single one of them too.
She has great chemistry with Carlin. She has wonderful chemistry with Affleck. You really see these in that way that people who are raised by a single parent, they get weirdly close with them because they don't triangulate their relationship with, a third party basically. And you can tell that they know each other better than a 7-year-old and a parent usually do.
Yes.
And how he's been kind of he's had his has his maturity stunted by living with his father, by having the person he socializes with most being a little kid, by, being a basically really immature guy. There's a moment early on in the scene or early on in the movie when J-Lo is pregnant and he's late to Lamaze class, and she tells him outright, I actually really like this moment a lot. She says, if you're going to be a dad, you leave work at 6 and you come home and you hang out with your kid. You don't go to drinks. You don't work late anymore. That's not the guy you are anymore. And she tells him this in no uncertain terms. And he kind of shrugs it. He's not being dismissive towards her, but he's I think we'll
see about that.
In his head, he thinks he can make both work. He thinks he can be a good dad and he can continue being as devoted to his career as he has been. And it's only at the end of this movie that he finally, through just sheer pushing through his own stubbornness, gets to the point where he realizes, I have to pick one or the other, and I want to pick this. And part of picking this is turning down the other thing that will take me away from home more. That's the thing, is that it's also that other thing of like, you can't go back. You can't go back to being 24 years old anymore. It's just not something you can do. I don't know. I got to the end of this and my first thought was just like, I'm not going to say that it's the greatest movie ever made. It's honestly like it's not even like an excellent movie in the way that some rom-coms like When Harry Met Sally are, but I was just like, the idea of being like
chooses the one directed by a man.
But
I'm sorry.
Written by a woman.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Written by a woman.
I'm just being annoying. Many of them are directed by men.
Yeah, that movie.
That movie is excellent.
Something's Got to Give. There you go. Directed by a woman. A basically perfect movie.
Sorry that I'm trying to cancel you.
You do that every time you come on. You're just like, oh, I'll cancel you. It'd be fun. Do you think it would be funny to live with a canceled person? Is that just what it is?
I would make you wear a sticker on your forehead that says
you
canceled.
You just make me wear it. Okay. Well, we'll look for it. That'll be we're going to start a merch shop, and canceled forehead stickers are going to be the first item that we sell. Not really. Please don't anybody contact me for that. But
just kidding, because they're going to be canceled temporary tattoos.
The idea of disliking this movie to the point of being angry at it.
Yeah.
Is kind of nuts to me.
It's kind of ridiculous. And obviously I was not the right age at this time to like understand what was going on. Because the thing is, I semi understand where it comes from, but I'm also just like, especially having seen the movie again recently, I'm just like, I just don't. Mm-hmm. I don't see how you can watch this and be like, ugh, horrible. I see how you can watch it and be like, not really my thing.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's because I always have a soft spot for this sort of thing.
Me too.
This is the sort of not bad movie, but maybe less ambitious movie, maybe might be a better term for it.
Sure.
That I really like.
Yeah. No, it's not doing anything really new. It's not there's even like the jokes are pretty like standard. Even if I really like them, they're pretty like you can see them coming from a mile away.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's just a comfort movie.
This is not reinventing the wheel. And I don't necessarily think that is a bad thing.
No, exactly. Sometimes you just want something like this.
I want to talk a little bit more about its perception, basically. And the reason why I think people might have had their knives out for this. One, the really obvious thing is that this is such a departure for Smith. And he had developed this kind of...
Kevin Smith. Sorry, for a second, I thought you were talking about Will Smith. I was like, he's only in this for 5 minutes.
They're not related, are they? Kevin and Will?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. Look, asking's free, right? Yeah, I just...
If you want to ask Will Smith, it probably costs a lot of money.
Yeah. Are you related to Kevin Smith? Just get out of here, man. One is that it's a departure for Kevin Smith at this point, and he had, especially at the time, a very kind of like film bro base of guys who expected a certain thing, like you said, kind of gross out comedies, things that were, even if they weren't gross out, they dealt with more edgy material.
Yeah, no, yeah, like a 24,
like sexuality.
Yeah, like a 24-year-old guy who likes Jay and Silent Bob because it's all boners and fart jokes.
Yeah,
isn't gonna love Jersey Girl.
Yes.
They're like, I don't want to be a dad.
And this was back when because this is like the origins of something, I really think of something like stan culture, where instead of defending every work by the artist that you like, we used to like call people out and abandon them, if they made one thing we didn't like.
We used to get belligerently mad if they did something that was slightly different from what we expected.
And it was
them.
basically just, stay in your lane was the message we were trying to send, that people were trying to send.
Well, I mean, and sometimes it comes from, well, you did a bad job doing this, but like, especially with something like that movie, I don't think that was the case. I think people were just like, I didn't want to see a movie like that. 0 stars. And it's like, but that's your fault. That's your fault for going in with the wrong expectations. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. I think that's the big reason. And the other one is, well, no, yeah, I don't know. We had this discussion kind of recently, and I don't want to bring up any specifics, but somebody watched a movie a recent movie that you and I both really, really like, and somebody else didn't like. And their argument is basically this, it's a different genre than what I thought it would be. And it's like, okay, then either turn it off or maybe don't.
Yeah, well, and that's always how reviews of Jersey Girl have read to me. It's this isn't the movie I thought it was going to be when I sat down to watch it, and I'm like, but can you review the movie that you sat down to watch?
Yeah.
You're a critic.
Yes, that's always like a hard thing to deal with when you're talking. So like, well, it wasn't what I expected, and it's like, I understand that. And if it had been sold to you as that other thing, I can understand that tinging your opinion.
Absolutely.
Of it, for
And
sure.
also, I've certainly had the experience of I thought this was going to be one thing. It ended up being something else. And that did make me dislike it. However, I would never say X is bad because of that. I will always have the caveat of the reason I think I feel this way is because I liked the other version that was in my head better. The big one for me, this is so stupid, but I was talking to one of my friends once about the third Descendants movie, and she said that she wanted it to be Mamma Mia, but with Disney villains, like 3 Disney villains.
Did she just pull that premise out of her ass?
No, because there's like we don't know who Mal's dad is, and so like we're clearly gonna find out in the third movie that her dad is a famous Disney villain. It would be fun if it was Mamma Mia, but it was 3 Disney villains. And she put that in my head, and I was like, that movie's never gonna be that good. And
I hate you for thinking of a better movie than the one that's gonna come out.
Exactly.
That's so annoying.
No, exactly. And I was like watching the movie because I'm an adult who watches the Descendants movies, and I was like, I mean, it's fine, but it's not Mamma Mia with Disney villains.
Yeah. Sorry. You know, it was really funny. Is on the way here, we passed.
That's also why I was thinking about it.
We passed a billboards for there's like a new Descendants movie.
Yeah.
That I was like, I'll throw it on with you because I know you like those movies, and you like derisively was like, I don't need to watch that shit.
Because I really liked the second one. I don't really care for the first or the third. There was just like this one specifically spoke to me for some reason.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of just like, it would kind of ruin what I have with it.
You said it with like the bitterness of like a Star Wars fan who's like, I'm not watching those new woke sequels. Ever since Descendants went woke.
Again, it's not really for me. So my thing is like, well, I liked the one. There's no real reason for me to like try to get into these. They're never going to give me Mamma Mia Disney villains, so there's no reason
you guys
to keep
can have
going.
that idea for free. All you have to do is make the movie. That's like literally you
Kenny
can have
Ortega,
the idea.
it's yours. Kenny, longtime listener of the pod.
Yes. So we've so far have Kenny Ortega, Kevin Smith, Will Smith, his brother.
Do you think Kenny Ortega and Kevin Smith would ever work together?
Sure. I don't know. They're both like
Kenny Ortega's a choreographer. Maybe if Kevin Smith wanted to do a musical, which is not the craziest thing I've ever thought of.
Sure. I don't know. I'd like to see it. I want to touch on one other movie that we watched kind of in preparation for this, but I think that I think that this is the keystone reason
I know
why people were ready to actively hate this movie.
I know.
We're of course talking about the previous Bennifer vehicle, Gigli.
Awful movie. That movie both made people not want to watch Jersey Girl, and I think in hindsight makes people dislike Chasing Amy more as well. I think that movie ruined 2 good Kevin Smith movies. It's very possibly my 2 favorite Kevin Smith movies.
It's kind of crazy how I'm like,
I didn't have any of that context when I saw these movies.
Yeah. So for anybody who hasn't seen it, and please God,
please
Gigli is like, it's you witness it and that you're like, wow, I really can't believe.
And it's not fun bad. It is just kind of the worst idea ever come up with.
Yes. But it is a
oh my God.
it is a movie that stars both Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez, like Jersey Girl.
No, that one doesn't star the 2 of them.
What?
I said Jersey Girl doesn't star the 2 of them in the same way.
It stars both. They're both in it. And
she gets the and.
And it is a movie about Ben Affleck trying to convert a lesbian woman to be sexually attracted to him, like Chasing Amy. Only instead of having any nuance or anything interesting to it, it's more offensive than you can possibly imagine. Also, a non-disabled person plays a severely mentally disabled person in that movie. I don't really want to talk any more about the specifics of Gigli, the movie, because frankly, that would just need its own discussion space. But
it's also not really that interesting to talk about. But it is interesting in the meta narrative of why do people dislike Jersey Girl?
It's
and that's actually maybe the most interesting thing about Geely is that it puts into context for me, because again, a person who saw Jersey Girl at 18 and was like, why are people so mean to this? I see Geely and I'm like, oh, I get it a little bit.
It's interesting in that while you're watching, you're like, I just cannot believe this version made it to this, because
I can't believe that so many people were like, this is fine.
That is famously a movie that was taken away from the director. And that's the cut that like the studio basically comes is what we've seen. So
they thought that was better.
That is the sane, theoretically more commercial version.
Ew.
And it's just nuts to see. But when you're actually talking about it, it's mostly just like, yeah, bad decision. Bad decision.
It's just the most ill-advised thing I've ever seen.
There's not really much.
Yeah. But yeah, I understand why. If you saw that in theaters when it came out, you would be like, I'm a little mad at Ben Affleck right now.
Yeah, because that movie comes out a year before this. That movie, I don't like the Razzies at all, but that movie wins like worst picture, worst actress, worst actor. It's like just this thing that we all as a culture kind of heap shit on. The way that like there's now just too much content. And frankly, there's too much bad stuff made every year for any one thing to attract ire the same way that something like Geely was able to at the time.
Yeah, and well, also simply nobody will allow a movie like that to be made again.
No. I mean, that's just, there are too many inadvisable elements.
Can't make Geely anymore because of woke.
You can't make Geely anymore because of woke. The like, one of the small benefits of mainstream filmmaking being as kind of sanitized and regulated as it is you'll never get anything as ill-advised as Geely again.
Yes.
But obviously the downside is like, there are movies that are good versions of something that insane that you now don't get anymore. But that being, I mean, that level of insanity.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Qualitative direction.
I know what you mean.
And I understand if you had seen, especially if you'd seen Geely, I don't think many people saw it. If you'd seen Geely, if you had the cultural awareness of Geely, if you had been experiencing the kind of paparazzi overexposure that Bennifer was getting, you might have your knives out for Jersey Girl.
It would be like, to put it into context for us, remember that 6 months or however much when Ariana Grande and Pete Davidson were dating, they were all over the place. It would be like if they released a movie just like Geely, and then a year later, Pete Davidson tried to release another movie.
Yeah. Jersey Girl and The King of Staten Island don't have nothing in common. Yeah.
I like both of those movies. I much prefer Jersey Girl, but there's a lot about King of Staten Island that I like.
Yeah.
It's way too long.
Yeah, it's over 2 hours.
Oh my goodness. It's got some great scenes though.
Yeah. Judd Apatow is the only comedy director who already releases all his movies as Snyder cuts. They're all already over 2 hours.
No reason for that. The 2+ hour version of King of Staten Island.
Well, the thing is, the standard version of it is the 2+ hour version.
I think that one's like 2:15.
It's 2:18.
There's like no reason. Why do you know that off the top of your head?
Because it's the same length as Terrifier 2.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. That's why I remember that.
That was just very specific. I was like, we haven't watched that movie in like 3 years.
No. I remember looking it up very specific.
Yeah.
Also because as soon as I heard it was over 2 hours, I was like, this is whatever number comes afterwards is egregious. If it's a 1, it's egregious. Not because I dislike Pete Davidson. I like Pete Davidson.
No, that movie should be 1:58.
Yes. I mean, it's brevity is the essence of wit. Is that how the phrase goes?
I have no idea. Honestly,
I believe it's essence of wit. I don't know. Correct me in the comments, I guess.
Please do it.
But Jersey,
send hate mail to the mailbag.
I was just about to agree with you. I was about to say your movie was good.
I'm just kidding. Aw.
Jersey Girl.
It is my movie. I did make it.
Yes, a good, like, kind of light, digestible movie that like is not what I call it thematically rich. No, there is not no substance there though. It is, I think that like
no, yeah, and the thing is, you watch this, and I'm sure you understand how an 18-year-old Lily would get attached to this and 100%. Be like, I would like to watch this.
Yes.
Literally just this and I Love You Man like once a week.
I see this kind of finding its way into the rotation, but like honestly, I watched this and I'm like, why? I'm mostly just confused that it doesn't hold the same place in people's estimation as like 13 Going on 30, because I think this is a better movie than that movie.
I also prefer this to 13 Going on 30.
But like that movie is like a beloved. And
but
I'm
yes,
like,
no, it's got a very similar vibe to other rom-coms from the mid 2000s.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. Jersey Girl is great. I think it's in the like comfort movie rotation basically. But I liked this movie a lot. I'm really glad we had a chance to dissect it because frankly, I don't think there's probably a ton of, I'm not saying that everybody's hating on it, but I don't think there's a ton of like
outside of the View Askew subreddit.
Yes,
no.
discussion of this movie in a positive way. I am like really glad that now that if people look up Jersey Girl, they might find this episode and hear
just like
someone
how I
speaking about
found
it
the
positively.
Roger Ebert review, meaning yes, one of us is going to die.
Well,
the
then
second.
we'll both die 3 hours after they look it up.
It's like The Ring, but really stupid.
Yeah, so only listen to this if you're already a subscriber because then it won't count. But if you're newly aware, don't let this be the intro one, basically.
You're gonna have to put that at the beginning. You're gonna have to put "They will die in 7 days."
It's 3 hours actually. It's not even 7 days.
3 hours. They will die in 3 hours.
So, but that's Jersey Girl, and that's I don't know. I honestly I'm like I think it's a great time. Is it, is it doing anything new? Honestly, no. I just think it's an effective. And because it's coming from an emotionally honest place, that shines through in the movie.
Yes, it feels very genuine. It doesn't
Yes.
feel like something that was just made for cash.
Yes.
In a way that I think that is also something that people like about Kevin Smith is that his movies do feel like something that he wanted to make.
Yeah, I do think that this is a movie he made for like commercial appeal. Like I think that this is a broad
but also
enough
that he
movie.
made it. You know what I mean?
He I think with this movie simultaneously sought to make a personal statement about something he was dealing with and tried to put it in a package.
Yeah. I'm not trying to say that he wanted to make $0.
Yeah, this is not an art movie that he's like anticipating no one's gonna see. We are just about out of time. So I
Yes.
think we're gonna be done with Jersey Girl for now. We'll end on the discussion question that we always do, even though we're changing formats, which we'll give you a few more details on in a second. Even though we're changing formats, I do want to make space for one-off episodes, for if we want to just talk about something that maybe we don't want to dedicate a whole series of episodes to. If we want to kind of get back to unfinished business, I want to be able to have the opportunity to do that, basically. But so in the spirit of that, what is another movie, Lily, that you would want to come back to defend?
I forgot to think about this before.
You forgot to think about it. What's funny about this question is that many people, even first-time guests, because they listen, they're aware of this question. Nobody ever prepares an answer. I always catch people off guard.
Similarly to this one, where I think critics saw it and were like, and every review I see of it from especially a critic is always like, this movie is too X. It's The Bling Ring, where I see like most of the critical response I see to that is very like this movie is not the thing that I thought it was going to be when I turned it on. I also really like
I
that
think
movie.
it's kind of dismissive, and a lot of the way people talk about that movie is, if not overtly sexist, then kind of the generic way that we're all trained to be indirectly,
Yes, I remember seeing a review that said that it's very shallow, and I'm like, I think that's the point of the movie.
I don't think this movie is going for emotional depth.
Well, and also because it's specifically, it's about people who steal from celebrities for no reason other than they want to be near the celebrities because they like them for a shallow reason. Like, it's actually a very...
It's a feature, not a bug.
Yes, it is there completely on purpose.
Okay. Well, Bling Ring...
Sits here for another hour talking about the Bling Ring.
Is the sort of thing that I like. I'm like, no, I would love to just like, let's take a week off whatever project we're working on and let's do like an episode on something like that. I do have a running list of all the movies that people would do if they were screening or that they would want to come back to defend. But with all that said, and I keep those lists and I would love to have a reason to go back to them. That is the end of this season of Bad First Impression. The kind of guest defense one. Honestly, it's been really fun, and I love having people, instead of just basing it based off like what's screening around the city / who can I match to that, I go to people and I'm like, just tell me something that you like that you want to make the case for, basically. And I've had a lot of, I think I've had more fruitful discussions that way. kind of based on that, I came up with the idea that should be announced on social media by now, that we would kind of do deep dives that will last multiple weeks. And there's no real rhyme or reason other than all the movies in any particular miniseries will all be related to each other. Sometimes it'll be franchises. Sometimes they have production staff or directors in common. Sometimes it's just like a thematic, thing. You've actually been talking to me about one that I think would be a really fun idea, that like it's something to do with their production all has in common. And it will give us the opportunity to do kind of a deep dive on a certain type of movie, and go into it over the course of weeks instead of trying to cram it all into one episode. We are starting off with a season going over all of the Lord of the Rings movies, plus a couple little bonus extras that we have thrown in there as well. That full episode should be posted shortly. Before we do that, we've got a couple other little goodies with you. Next week, we have kind of a mini-sode giving you the full outline of the episode schedule for that season. And I'll be co-hosting that whole series with Kristen Eng, who famously went to Staten Island with me 3 times to go watch the extended edition, to then record an episode that is primarily about taking the bus to Staten Island instead of anything in the Lord of the Rings. So we're actually going to have a chance to go in depth on those, and kind of talk about those as we're dealing them. I mean, like, that's the thing, is that, like, what better pilot than to go back to a thing that the original premise got in the way of actually meaningfully discussing.
The bus ride sounded really stressful.
It was extremely stressful. And then you went there, it's like 3 hours to get there, and then you're watching a 4-hour movie, and then it's like 3 hours to get back. It was like that. I know that, like, in my stupid concept brain, I was like, oh, it'll be like an unexpected journey, or whatever stupid fucking thing I thought to myself.
It's crazy to see Lord of the Rings and have the commute be longer than the movie.
Well, not one way of that's the fucked up thing, is that both the commutes, yes, that's longer. But we're doing a deep dive on that. We're not just doing the Jackson movies. We're doing some of the early animated movies, which have been a weird trip to go down and have caused some kind of fun, like, micro deep dives within them. But more details on that will be out in next week's mini-sode. After that, we are kind of already getting into the habit of going back and addressing previous subjects. So the week after next, we have Alex Campo, noted Nicolas Cage freak, coming on to discuss the new Oz Perkins film, Longlegs, which Nicolas Cage is in. We will... Basically, whenever he's in a major movie that feels worth discussing, we plan to revisit Nicolas Cage together, and cover it and talk about, what his ongoing career and what each movie means within the scope of his career. In addition to that, the following week, this one is more of a stretch. We will be covering, me and the folks over at the Skeeter Stevenson Variety Hour, as well as noted animated nipple lover Bobby Martin, are going to come back to discuss probably what will be the biggest movie of the summer, Deadpool and Wolverine. Because weirdly, every time I have one of those 3 guests on, we end up on an extended Deadpool tangent. So we'll cover those 2, and then we're going to go right into Lord of the Rings. By then, there should be a full schedule up, so if you want to watch ahead, if you want to follow along with us, you'll be able to do that. Lily, thank you so much for being on. Do you have anything to plug before we do our outro?
If you want to follow my crafting account, it's called Lily's Crocheting IG.
Yeah, you've been making more complex stuff lately.
I have, I haven't been taking pictures of it.
No.
But stick with it. Just follow it. Yeah. I don't know what else. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that being said, this has been Bad First Impression. You can follow the show on all socials except for TikTok at BFI Pod. I am currently, according to them, permanently banned from TikTok with no warning and no reason given. So I will put in this episode description the page where you can go to complain that at BFI Pod has been, with no justification, permanently banned. We are probably going to get a secondary account up in the meantime, in which case I will put a link to that account in the episode description as well. But I don't know. Let's start a fight with TikTok. Why not? Right? They'll only be around another couple of months. Then who will have the last laugh? Me. But you can find us on all other socials at BFI Pod. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on any of the places where you download your podcasts.
And you can find me and Devin behind the bead curtain.
Yes, we'll be behind the bead curtain. I'm Devin Warner. I'm your host. You can find me at What If Devin. I am mostly posting about the show, but go ahead and give me a follow if you're so inclined. What's a fun one to go out with on this one? Do you have an idea?
We can go to Jersey.
We could go until next time. We could actually go to New Jersey as the end of the episode.
We'll see you in Jersey.
So next time,
I don't know.
I'm
a girl, and I would so if I were in Jersey, I'd be a Jersey girl.
You would be well for the duration of time that you're there.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you what. I think I have a cute one to go out on. So until next time, you were the only thing I was ever good at. Did you like that? Did you like that thing that he said to his daughter?
Thought it was a little gross when you said it to me.
Okay, well, bye everybody.